Well, a dangerous journey for the refugees is just the start of the miseries that face them. In a new report, Amnesty International says most countries are not doing enough to help the world's 21 million refugees. According to them, more than 10 million refugees are hosted by only 10 of the world's 193 countries. The report says that only 30 countries have a refugee resettlement program in place. It highlights a stark contrast between the number of Syrian refugees taken by neighbouring countries and others with similar capacities. For example, Lebanon has 1.1 million Syrians compared to New Zealand that has only 250,000. The report uses data like population, national income and unemployment rates to show how wealthier countries could take a fairer share of refugees. Let's get more on the story and speak to Amnesty International's Khairunissa Dhala, who is live for us in London. She's a researcher at Amnesty International. Many thanks for joining us today. Now, I'll be honest with you, Khairunissa, your report, it isn't exactly surprising, the results, but why do you think this is the case? Why is it that poor countries seem to be taking millions of refugees, but the richer ones don't take so many? What is the reason for this? Are people in Jordan more compassionate, for example, than people in the UK?
Well, many of the countries that are hosting the largest number of refugees are neighboring areas where the crises occur. So, for example, for Syrian refugees, the majority of them are hosted in the countries neighboring Syria. So it is partly geography, but it is also compassion, and countries such as Lebanon and Jordan and Turkey have been very welcoming towards Syria's refugees. However, there comes a point when they reach their threshold, which is the case at the moment. Lebanon, as you mentioned, hosts over 1 million refugees. Turkey hosts over 2.5 million Syrian refugees, and Jordan hosts close to 1 million. While countries in Europe and elsewhere are hosting a tiny fraction of that.
In your report, you compare New Zealand, which has 250 refugees, with Lebanon, as you say, which is 1.1 million Syrians. I mean, you're the one who mentioned the point of geography. I mean, is it a fair comparison given how far New Zealand is to Syria? I mean, how would you get all the refugees to New Zealand?
So 30 countries in the world currently have resettlement programs, which means taking the most vulnerable refugees from the host countries to a third country, such as New Zealand, such as Australia or the US or Europe, where they would be able to get the safety and protection that they need. And what we're proposing is for countries to increase the number of resettlement places that they are currently offering, and in addition to that, for other countries to establish resettlement programs. Currently, there are 21 million refugees in the world, and 10% of them are in need of resettlement. So that's 2.1 million refugees, which is only 0.03% of the world's population. If you look at it like that, then if 60 or 90 more countries rather than just 30 had more resettlement options, it would resolve the refugee crisis.
Well, what can be done to put pressure on them? Because you are releasing reports like this. I've heard of other reports like this. It's not something we don't know. We are aware that there is a problem. What can be done to put pressure on these governments?
What's really needed now is political leadership. The UN summit in September was a real disappointment. The New York Declaration was really far below what was needed in the world. But more political leadership, more governments showing positive examples. Canada, for example, since the change in government, has resettled 30,000 Syrian refugees. So if there is political will, change can definitely happen, but it can't be done in an ad hoc way. More governments need to come together to show real leadership.
Okay, good to talk to you. Khairunissa Dhala from Amnesty International speaking to us live from London. Many thanks for your time.